But that was my main problem, that they wouldn't recognize me. Also, I knew nothing about baseball, didn't know what the World Series was, had no idea of any politics. They would have asked me any questions, I couldn't have answered them.
Morning of that first day, one battalion under Colonel Praed of the 101st Airborne joined him. They, as soon as Colonel Praed joined, they decided to attack. Apparently at the same time the Germans decided to attack.
At 1400 hours, the paratroopers and our tanks and our armored infantry launched the attack. At 1400 hours, the German forces launched an all-out attack on Noville. So we had the situation of the Germans and the American units attacking one another simultaneously from points about 700 yards distant. Actually, the Germans were stopped. They withdrew back behind the ridge. Our paratroopers on the northwest of the town actually gained the ridge. The tanks, the armored infantry, and the paratroopers on the northeast of the town were unable to get to their positions. So after a fight of about 45 minutes or an hour, we withdrew the paratroopers from the northeast back into the town of Noville.
Desiree was hit badly, and Colonel Praed was killed that evening. And I didn't know Desiree was hurt for 24 hours. He was later captured when the hospital was captured.
For the next 3 days and nights, the defenders of Bastogne slugged it out with the numerically superior enemy. Then, on the 22nd of December, when the besieged city was finally encircled, the commanding general of the 47th Panzer Corps sent the following surrender ultimatum. It called for the surrender of the Bastogne garrison. If the Americans did not comply within 2 hours, Bastogne would be completely destroyed and its defenders annihilated. General McAuliffe's one-word answer, nuts, reverberated around the world.
Cherry, who's not here, went out to Longville, came back at midnight, and found me asleep. He asked that he be allowed to sit on a road out east of Margaret, short of Longville, because he had found a combat command CCR of the 9th Armored Division in position. 10 or 12 tanks, a colonel, and some artillery. I gave him permission to stay where he was. Cherry never got back to his command. In the meantime, some of the Panzer Division had cut in behind his outfit at Margaret, and he never joined. However, his headquarters went into the little Neffy Chateau. At Neffy Chateau, Cherry had a tank or two and a few machine guns and his whole headquarters company, and he put up a real nice fight all day. That evening he had to retire. He felt like he had to get out because he was being burnt out. Cherry lined up his vehicles to go out. He was to go out last in a Jeep. He went outside. He got 2 Tommy guns. He emptied one Tommy gun to the right, got the other up to the left, climbed in his Jeep, and pulled out. The driver was hit, the Jeep was hit, the medico in the back was hit. Cherry got out. He got a DSC for this. At first, the defense of Bastogne rested with 3 units of the 10th Armored Division. Task Force de Sobry in the northeast, Task Force Cherry in the east, and Task Force O'Hara in the southeast.
But the morning of December 23rd broke clear and cold, and visibility was unlimited from England to the foxholes of Bastogne, where every man looked up to the sky and prayed, and their prayers were answered.
We had a fine VHF set which could work with the air. We set that thing up in the middle of the compound, and he used the air as follows. The airplanes carried napalm bombs, ordinary bombs, rockets, and what he called bullets. He said, I pulled the napalm bombs first, then I pulled the bombs next, I pulled the rockets next, then I gave them bullets, and before I let them go, I made them circle once to give us new targets. I have estimated that the air was equal to at least 2 divisions of help. Because they could see in the snow, which had newly fallen, where the tanks had gone, and they were able to bomb all of these little woods. And one time they found a column moving right toward the 4th Armored Division, which was battling to get into us. And I think the next air squadron destroyed the whole group.
The 24th, 1944, I was awakened at about 2 o'clock in the morning. The control point, CP, had received a message from one of our outposts that the 2 tanks there were down to 3 shells for 2 tanks. They had just had a little battle with the Germans trying to come up the road, and they needed ammunition. Well, I guess I must have been the expendable individual, because I was chosen to take ammunition out at 2 o'clock in the morning in the heavy snow and fog that existed in the Bastogne area. Those of you who were there can recall how narrow the roads were, how foggy it was, and how snowy it was to travel in that area at night. I had woke up my Jeep driver, a little boy from West Virginia by the name of Newman. He was a wonderful individual. We loaded our Jeep, and of course on the front of the Jeep we had our wire cutters, we had a machine gun on the hood of the car. We put in 30 rounds of 90 millimeter ammunition, 2 boxes of 10-in-1 rations, went to the kitchen and picked up some hot coffee. We started out on this venturesome road that goes through wooded area, not being able to see anything but mostly snow and ice and fog. We finally arrived at the point where our tanks were. However, the biggest part of it is traveling this 2.5 mile. You were wondering when you were going to hear a halt or hear a machine gun start blazing shells at you. It was really kind of a scary situation. We unloaded our ammunition and the rations, and the odd part of was, I want to give credit to what we call the pots or the helmets. That was a wonderful piece of equipment. You just can't realize how many uses it really had. For instance, when you were in combat and the riflemen were shooting at you, if you had to go to the bathroom, that was a good place to go. And you could pour it out without getting getting shot at. And also, on this night that I'm speaking of, they used it as their coffee pot, because I poured their coffee into their helmets, and that was what it was for. So it was a very interesting.
One of the saddest and most dramatic incidents occurred on Christmas Eve night. We had asked for volunteers when we lost our hospital, and a very fine trained nurse, the daughter of the village hardware storekeeper, Renee Lemaire, volunteered. She took charge of a group of wounded from the 10th Armored Division in a house on the main street of Bastogne. But on Christmas Eve, a 500-pound bomb struck the house, went all the way through, and none of the 10th Armored Division soldiers, nor Renee Lemaire, not a one survived.
On December 26th, elements of the 4th Armored Division crashed into Bastogne. The encirclement was broken, and for the Germans, it was the beginning of the end.
Thinking it over, I've decided that if we had been in Bastogne alone without any infantry, we couldn't have held 10 minutes. The 101st Airborne, without the steel that my outfit afforded, could not have held. But the steel of my outfit and the blood and flesh of their outfit made a pretty tough combination.
The German blitz was aided by fog and foul weather. Patton ordered his chaplain to write a prayer asking fair weather for battle. It was issued to troops and God before dawn, December the 23rd. Immediately, as you all remember, the weather cleared. Patton declared that anyone having so much influence with God deserved a medal. And the chaplain got it, said the chaplain. Once when a German column of horse-drawn artillery had been destroyed, Patton sought out the scene, walked the length of the column, taking pictures not of dead Germans, but of dead horses, which he, as an old cavalryman, loved. Then he said to Lieutenant Chapman, take a good look, because this is probably the last horse-drawn artillery unit you will ever see in any war.
That was, I think, the most notable battle that this division ever fought, and it was unknown. We were the Ghost Division. In order to fool the Germans on the Saar, we were unknown as defenders of the Bastogne road junction, and of having knocked the German 7th Army back from Luxembourg City. We had no markings on our tanks. We had none of these shoulder patches on. We operated in secret, and we never really got credit for what we did. But hey, we know we were there.
It was to be the coldest, snowiest weather in the Belgian Ardennes history. To this day, the largest land battle ever fought in military history. There were 500,000 German troops, many of them as young as 16 and barely combat trained, against 655,000 American and Allied troops. 3 German armies pitted against 3 American armies. At first, the Americans and the Allies had no idea that Hitler had planned to go on the offensive, especially in the north. This, and the weather, was Hitler's greatest hope. The German command knew they only had a certain amount of time, and that if slowed down, this would cause Hitler's plan to be dissolved. This is exactly what the 10th Armored did, was simply and decisively slow the enemy without surrendering. After it was all over, 100,000 Germans were killed, wounded, or captured. Another 125,000 Americans and Allied troops killed, wounded, or captured. While I was growing up, just inside our front door was a little bureau with 3 drawers. In the top drawer was my father's Bronze Star and his Purple Heart. I used to gaze upon them, not knowing a lot about medals, but somehow I knew these medals meant that my dad did something brave, something beyond himself. He never talked about his war experiences to me. Like so many of the World War II vets, rarely would you find them speaking anything about their heroic actions in one of the greatest wars in modern history. It simply came home after the war was over and created one of the greatest economies this country has ever seen. My father raised me to think freely, to be as free as I wanted to be. Always underneath, I knew he had paid for me to be who I was and who I wanted to be, the highest honor, putting his life on the line before I was ever even born. My hat is off to those World War II vets, as Tom Brokaw has called them, the greatest generation ever. In the next part, we will battle across the Rhine with the 10th until the end of the war. I hope you will come with me on this journey with the Tigers of the 10th Armored.